Hello, Shobha. How are you?
Hey, good to be with you on this show. I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well. When someone asks me this question, what are you doing and how are you? I just say I'm breathing.
Oh no, you're doing much more than breathing. You're thinking, you're creating, you're inspiring others. Don't just say I'm breathing.
Thank you so much for taking our time, Shobha. And
My pleasure.
you've been amazing all this while. And your chronicles keeps us busy. I religiously go and watch your chronicles each day. And every time
I'm,
you sing a song, it brings a smile to my face. So I'm hoping that you're going to sing a song at the end of this life too.
you know what I do, Anurag, is actually slaughter and murder songs. It's just my little way of saying, hey, everybody can sing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to prove anything by singing well. These are just songs which I connect up to the chronicle, and it makes people smile in recognition of a familiar song, a tune they know, and it brings a bit of joy to me and to the people watching, and that's about it. I can't hold a note. I'm not a singer. It's just something I do just for fun.
And this is what I've been telling everyone: do anything and everything that makes you happy at this moment, because at this moment,
Right, right.
anything that is making you happy, you should just go ahead and do it.
I
Shobha, you are a
totally agree.
writer, and you've been a writer for many, many years. You are a legend that we all know of. Uh, at this point of time, we can't go out and really buy a book, and all that we have is options of reading on Amazon or on Kindle. Would you start with telling people what are you reading, and if you have any suggestions for this period for people to go and read?
Well, yes, because I'm completely immersed in a book. It's called The Girl Made of Gold.
Mhm.
It isn't yet out in the market. It was, I think, due to be launched soon, but I have an advance copy. I'm very fortunate to get that. It's a debut novel written by a Bharatanatyam dancer. It's based in Tanjavur in the 1920s and gives us a phenomenal access into the rather mysterious and very sensuous world of temple dancers, the Devdasis. Girl Made of Gold. And it also acquaints you with traditions which we have no, at least I had no idea about at all, which go back centuries, and what women who were born into the Devdasi class had to endure just to survive. But it's like a thriller. It really is something I'm enjoying so much that I read just 10 pages at a time and quickly put it away because I don't want the book to end.
How
It's
beautiful
written
is
by a
that?
lady called Gitanjali. Sorry, I forgot to tell you who it was written by. It's Gitanjali Konware, an accomplished dancer and an exponent of the arts, from what I can tell from the author note.
Wonderful. But since Shobha, we are not as fortunate as you are, and we do not have the advanced copy of this book, what should we go and find at this point of time and read?
There's nothing like, like this comfort food. I believe there are also, it's a category called comfort books. These are books that you may have read when you were much younger and you'd like to revisit now when you have the time to do so. And most of them would be available on Kindle, which would be the classics. I would go back and read War and Peace. It's a tome, but it's certainly one of the most powerful narratives, the most powerful book novel ever written by anybody with unforgettable characters. I would go back and read Vikram Seth. All his books are just fabulous, but the one I enjoy the most is called An Equal Music. So there are books that immediately connect you to some moments in your own life. And sometimes those books are kept on a shelf and you keep saying, I'll go back to them someday, but you never find the time to do that. So
True.
I think that's what I would recommend. And all these are classics, they are available on Amazon.
Now, Shobha, you've written a book called Spouse, and this is so that book is so relevant for I think every point of time. But this point, when so many women, be it housewives or working women, they're all locked in with their husbands. Do you have any suggestions for these women? And you know, I mean, we are reading the news, and I was listening to the chairperson of the Women Commission the other day that the cases of domestic violence have gone up so
Have
high.
gone up.
What would
Yes.
you like to say on that?
You know, instead of reading Spouse, I would say read Surviving Men, because that is something that uh, gives you a few tips on how to survive during a crisis, which is what we are going through. Relationships are going through a tremendous amount of turbulence at the moment, because couples who are just not used to the idea of being locked together in an enclosed space with no escape route at all, 24 by 7 is something that can get on anybody's nerves, no matter how madly in love you may be. So I would say that even within that constricted space, try and give each other space more like a metaphor. Don't be in each other's hair. Don't have over expectations from one another. Don't be over demanding. You can be in the same room and yet not oppress the other person. Silence sometimes can be very therapeutic. You don't have to be chattering and talking and interacting 24 by 7, because that in itself can be very exhausting. And try and be as helpful as you can towards one another. Right now, interdependency is what the world is seeing more and more of, because we've discovered we aren't islands unto ourselves. And the more you try and be uh, someone who can be counted on for whoever you're sharing this enclosed space with, it could be your spouse, it could be your children, the help in your home, try and also be as considerate towards them as you would like them to be considerate towards you, and to respect your boundaries and as you respect theirs.
Now, thank you, Shobha. Now, coming to your body of work, there's been so much that you've done in the past, and I can hardly encapsulate all of it in this live chat. But what I'd like to talk about is three iconic magazines that you have edited. And you were the editor of these magazines at a point where there were no PAPs, there was no social media, there was no one. And people, when even before the internet took over, people would just go and buy these magazines to know about celebrities. So do you have any celebrity who you interviewed, a favorite interview, or a celebrity that you remember talking to at that point of time?
Well, it goes back a long, it goes back many decades before most of you watching this would have even been born. So let me give it a slight historical context, because the person I actually enjoyed interacting with the most unforgettable man I'd met at that point and continues to fascinate me, long dead and gone, of course, is Morarji Desai. He was impossible. He was misogynistic. He refused to look, even make eye contact with me. He'd invited me to breakfast. He was fascinating. Ramnath Goenka was very fascinating also, for different reasons. Brilliant, mercurial, canny, newspaper man, legend in his own lifetime. There have been incredible experiences of that sort. But if you're asking about movie stars, honestly, I wasn't the one who interviewed those stars. I, when I did start interviewing people, it was people I had a huge regard for. Not that I don't have regard for movie stars, but that was done by reporters who worked at Stardust, not by me. I was the editor, and I put their copy together. So there were people like Mrinalini Sarabhai, and people who went on to do great things in their lives, who were already great when I met them. And sharing their life stories for me was a great learning. And with each of those interviews, I came away feeling very, very enriched. And the person I'd love to interview today, if you ask me, there's only one person who's been on my wish list for the longest time, and I know will never give an interview. Two, in fact. One is Narendra Modi and the other is Sonia Gandhi. Both enigmatic, both controversial, both suspicious of journalists and interviewers, both powerful. I'm very complex people. So in the contemporary scenario, yes, these are the two public figures I would love to interview.
I remember reading once and listening to one video where Mr. Bachchan said that he was scared of you at one point of time. When he came new, when he was
Uh,
new to the industry, he was scared of a
yes.
journalist called Shobha Day. Why was he scared of you?
I think because even in those, back in those days, as well as today, I think there was a certain reputation I carried with me, which I'm very proud of. I was a no nonsense kind of an interviewer. I was not doing PR journalism. I wasn't asking soft questions. It wasn't sort of jalebi conversations, it wasn't vanilla. And most stars at that point were reluctant to do interviews that force them to get out of their comfort zone and address questions which maybe just regular people wanted to know about them. And Mr. Bachchan has always been a fairly reticent man. He's not very forthcoming. So I suppose and at that time in his career, he was pretty controversial too because of his closeness to the Gandhi family. He was a family friend of Rajiv Gandhi, and then there was the falling out and so on. And then the emergency came to India, and it was somehow the ban on the film press was somehow thought. People imagined that he was instrumental in that decision. He wasn't the most popular movie star at the time, though he was incredible as an actor, as he continues to be, and he is a family friend of over 40 years. But I'd like to assure him that I'm not a dragon lady, and I don't bite, and I don't scratch, and I would have just asked, tough questions, and I'm sure he would have handled them wonderfully.
Talking about tough questions, Shobha, it takes me to your tough opinions and what you've been saying. You always say what is ought to be said, and you never refrain from saying anything which you wish to say, which you want to say, and you are just very open about it. How do you even think of doing this? I'm sure that there must have been some point. I don't know if this was a case in your life when you write an article, because your columns are read by millions of people all across the globe. When you go out to a media house, do you think that they ever think that her article can put us in trouble? Because your articles and your columns are very honest.
Well, I've had a track record of over 45 years of writing in the public space. Yes, during Stardust, when we break rules with the movie stars, we did run into, legal. So far, I've not a single of mine, no matter what the content, commercial, been someone saying, "I'm sorry, we can't run this because it's too hot paper to handle." Also fortunate that I work with very credible media houses, the top media houses of the country, like the Times of India. And they certainly wouldn't have someone on board for so many years who was irresponsible in terms of an opinion that's being expressed. And their editors go through every single word with a tooth comb. And I feel very proud that they have continued to publish me, and I hope they continue to do so, and that they will continue to respect fearless voices, independent voices, not committed to any political party, not aligned to any political party, not playing ball with any political party, merely talking on behalf of citizens, which is what I see my role as.
That is true. I completely agree to what you say, because when I read your articles, I feel there's fearlessness in those columns and articles that you write. Shobha, I also want to ask you, what does it feel like when you write an opinion and it is not being accepted by people? People always, there are people who like it and people who do not like it. How do you react to trolls? Because people have been very nasty when it comes to you, be it the people in the government, be it the people on Twitter. I feel they've gone way beyond than they should. How do you react to it? How do you feel about it?
Like I'm reacting to your question right now with a shrug and a smile. I never ever respond to anonymity, and I find that trolls are all cowards. They don't even own up to their troll names. So I ignore them. I do not engage with trolls ever, and that's been my policy throughout. Neither do I read, negative, nasty comments because it really helps nobody. If someone wants to challenge my opinion, they're very, very welcome to call me up or write a letter to the editor or take it up with the right sources. But for me to waste my energy, my time, explaining myself to a bunch of a troll army, probably vested interest, probably paid. Who cares? I mean, if we are all to live with thin skins, then we are all in the wrong business. When you are putting your opinion into the public domain, I'm not there to win a popularity contest. I'm there to speak my mind, and you're there to reject that point of view equally. So I'm not trying to convince you about my point of view. If it raises questions in your mind, great. If you disagree vehemently, great. But abuses, sorry, I don't have the time for that.
Very beautifully said. Shobha, you've written so many books. You're writing for decades now. I think you've written 20 of them. How did it
Yeah.
feel when your first book was published? And when did you even realize that, okay, this language has the power and that is what you want to do?
Well, I've always been writing, even as a young person, as a child. That was my self-expression, always was through words. I mean, for a lot of young people, it can be music, it can be poetry, it can be dance. But for me, it was always words. I've maintained diaries from the age of maybe 12, 13, 14, some of which I actually still have in my possession. And I find engaging with life through words the single most fulfilling aspect of my my creativity. So when the first book came out, it was absolutely trashed to smithereens. A person perhaps with a more hypersensitive personality would have said, I don't really want to do this ever again in my life. But by then I was already writing halfway through my second book, and the first book was a huge, huge bestseller, continues to sell so many years later. And criticism is something that has never daunted me. It's not something that I preoccupy myself with, other people's opinions. I listen very carefully to what people are saying, but I take away what I wish to take away from criticism, through which I can learn something, which can in some way help me become a better writer. But if someone is just going to trash me for the sake of trashing me without often not having even read my books, it's their loss if they haven't read the books. But it was exciting. It was fun. A first book is always something. It's a special. It's like your special baby. But 20 books later, I feel exactly the same sense of anticipation as I did with the first book. And I do have a book coming out later this year, to which I'm looking forward to greatly.
Can we talk about that? Are we allowed to talk about a little bit about that book?
Yes, of course. It was announced at the World Book Fair in Delhi.
What is it about?
It is a book, it's called Sheila Ji, and it's really the diary of a Marwari matriarch. So it goes into a world of Marwari ladies of a certain vintage and of a certain stretch. And I enjoyed creating the character of Sheila Ji very much. It's very honest, it's very gutsy. I enjoyed writing it, and I finished it during the lockdown period, so it's especially important to me.
Thank you so much. Now we're getting a lot of messages for you, and someone just says, Shobha, ma'am, I want to date you. Well, I'm
Well,
sure a lot
I'm
of men
open
want
to
to
it.
date her.
But it's a lot of women as well. So I'm completely gender fluid. And if the person is interesting enough, why not? You're on. Come to Mumbai and let's set it up.
I repeat. Sonali says, Shobha, you are an inspiration to so many writers all over the country, especially women writers.
I'm sorry, Anurag, I lost you.
Sonali says, Shobha, you're an inspiration to so many writers all across the country, especially women writers. There are lots of comments. I've read your autobiography. You're wonderful. Shobha ma'am, you're gorgeous. We all know that.
Oh gosh,
Uh,
more.
Such a
Keep it
candid
rolling.
person.
Thank you. That's
If there's
such a
any
pleasure to hear.
question, if someone has any question, can you please write down your question so that we can take the questions and not the comments? I read a question by Divya Shah. She says, ma'am, what are the secret tips which you might want to give the younger self, your younger self?
For my younger self and my older self, actually, there's not much of a difference. I guess I was born a gypsy, continue to be a gypsy. I've always had a strong, very highly individualistic streak, even as a teenager. That stays. Uh, I would I would say be more reckless. I would tell my younger self, take more chances. In so many ways, I came from a conservative background, and some of it did inhibit me. Uh, I would say when you're younger, you can afford to really buck the system and travel if you can and learn and meet hundreds of people who are entirely unsuitable. Because there's no point meeting people who are from exactly the same sort of a background and who your parents approve of, because you're going to learn nothing from them. I like the I like the word loiter. So I would say I like ladies and men who loiter, because it's only through loitering that you discover yourself and you discover other people and you discover your potential to survive, to thrive, to enjoy life, to grab it, to fall down, to make mistakes, to get up again, to keep running. Like the Jolly Walker ad says, keep walking. I like to say keep running. I mean,
Running.
mentally, of course. Yeah, keep running and, never ever cease to be amazed by life, because every single day has something in it which is full of wonder and full of shock, even full of sometimes things that are not very pleasant. But that's life. You can't have a marshmallow, uh, existence. Life is tough. And if it toughens you up, don't be scared of becoming a tougher person. It's fine, but don't lose sight of your soft self either.
Thank you, Shobha, for giving those tips. Someone asks you if you have what is your biggest dream?
No, that's I don't know. My biggest dream. I don't have those kind of conventional dreams. I'm 72 years old, and now I dream of just growing wings and taking off, maybe into another galaxy, into some other dimension. It's in the realm of fantasy. I mean, if I could start all over again, I would probably have said I'd have loved to study architecture. Uh, I don't know. I don't have that huge big dream. I'm very much a creature of the moment. So I don't even have that perfect answer to what's your biggest dream, ma'am, because I live a dream every single day of my life. And I find that much more exciting than chasing that one big dream which you may or may not ever achieve.
So beautifully put. Archana asks you a question if there's something like a writer's instinct.
I absolutely believe that is so, and it's a lovely question because like this mantra, you is one of your guides. So an instinct is something that is inborn. It's a gift. A writer is a person, like a musician is a gifted person. You can't create a musician. You can't send a person with zero talent to a music school and have that person emerge as a Mozart. It is something that God gives. So thankful God gave me words, because words are my therapy, my fears is words. And it is definitely an instinct, but you have to be self-aware. You should know that, yes, I possess that instinct, and then grow that instinct, recognize it, use it, think of it as the potential that you have. Listen to your instinct, listen to your heart, listen to your mind, listen to every fiber of your being, because when you're writing, you're not writing just with your a laptop, you're not just keying in words, you're using inside your mind. It's your feelings, it's your hurts, it's your disappointments, it's sab kuch, sab kuch, sab kuch. Give your sab kuch when you write, and then find out just how that can be.
So I'm going to take last two questions. Someone asks if who runs faster, you or your mind?
Who runs faster than whose mind? My own mind. Sorry, I
There is some connection problem,
what?
but okay. Can you hear me? Thankfully.
Oh, cool. So what the question about who runs faster than my mind? Is that the question?
Who runs faster, you or your mind?
Oh, definitely my mind. My mind is racing constantly, and I try hard to catch up, and I don't always succeed. But I like that. I'm always out of breath because I can't keep up with my mind and my imagination, and it's exhausting but also exhilarating.
Wonderful. And there is one last question. Which is your favorite character you have written so far amongst all your books?
I would say I'm partial to Karuna, who was the protagonist of my very first book, Socialite Evenings. The name itself suggests compassion. She's a complex character and a little like me in some ways and not at all like me in other ways. So Karuna from Socialite Evenings definitely still
And
remains my top favorite.
this is the time when we really need not Corona, but Karuna. Everyone
Karuna,
needs Karuna.
absolutely right.
This is the time. Thank you so much, Shobha, for being here,
Thank
for
you,
taking
Anurag.
out your time and doing this live because I don't know if you are very usual with this. Probably this is your first live, and I'm
It
grateful that
is.
you are here with the
It
live.
is.
We really enjoy your chronicles. Would you like to end this conversation in the similar fashion as you do your chronicles with a small little song?
Oh gosh, if you'd only warned me. But today I'll just repeat the one I sang this morning because I think it's appropriate for now. It says, मुझे कुछ कहना है, मुझे भी कुछ कहना है, मुझे कुछ कहना है, मुझे भी कुछ कहना है, पहले तुम, पहले तुम, पहले तुम, पहले तुम. So मैंने आपसे बहुत कुछ कह दिया है, and I look forward to listening to you again on some other platform and going live with you again, Anurag. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting
Thank
me.
you, Shobha. But before you leave, I'd like to tell everyone that Shobha is leaving, but you all should not leave because we have Anandita coming in right away, who's Shobha's daughter, and she'll be in conversation with us. So you all stay back while Shobha leaves the conversation. Thank you,
I
Shobha.
leave you. Thank you, Anurag. I leave you to my beautiful daughter. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Yeah. Congas.
I think Shobha, you'll have to leave the conversation so that Anandita can come in. Yes, Priya, I'm smiling. I am smiling. I was a little worried because of the internet connection, but we are waiting for Anandita. Well, let me tell you all, Anandita, she's a beautiful girl. She's been working on. Hi, Anandita.
Hi, lovely to meet you.
Same here. I never expected I'm going to meet you for the first time virtually like this.
I know, but it's such a treat. I'm so excited.
It is. So, Anandita, at this point of time, I just had a conversation with your mother, who is a very, very well known author. And
Right.
you, I'm sure, were grown with a lot of books. Do you
Yeah.
have any favorite book? Maybe it could be one of your mother's book or any other book that you.
Yeah, I have. I've been fortunate to have been brought up in a family where not just literature, but also art has been a vital part of my upbringing. Very proud to say that my father is one of the first people who had his
I know
digital
the
art show.
Samson.
Yes, with
I know about
Samsung.
it. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just so privileged. I feel so happy. But one book which definitely touched my heart when I was growing up was Speed Post by my mother. It is still such a special book. Yeah, because I still resonate with it so much, and there's so much that I can still take away from the book.
And do you have any favorite from favorite letter? Because I believe she had written letters to all her children in that book. So, do
Yeah,
you have any favorite letter or something that an excerpt that you would like to share with us or read for us?
absolutely. Absolutely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a bit concise because the chapter's a bit too long and it'll cut into our conversation. And I printed it out from the book so that it's just easier for me to read.
Please.
Uh, so I'm going to read it. Dear Anandita, last night you cried for an hour, maybe longer. I could still hear your sobs as the car pulled out and we arranged our expressions suitably for the party ahead. My evening was ruined, as was yours. I should have stayed at home and comforted you. Something was obviously wrong, for you, of all the children, to have staged that tantrum. It was so unlike your normal behavior when you watched me dress and cheerfully wave bye bye. And yet I went to a party where I wouldn't have been missed at all. You were right when you screamed, who cares? There was anxiety in your 9-year-old mind. You hadn't been able to articulate it. All you knew was that you didn't want to be left alone for whatever reason. I so desperately wanted to stay back and comfort you. Point is, I didn't. Even as your crying became more insistent, I wore my sari, took a final look in the mirror, and left. You shut your eyes, I shut my mind. I know it sounds cruel, but parents can be cruel. And when we got home, you were in bed, your own bed. The maid mentioned you'd skipped dinner and cried yourself to sleep. I felt wretched. I deserved to. Yours in anguish, Mama. You know, Anurag, it's so funny because I still crash in my mother's bed, still ever so often. So this letter really resonates with me. And I read it to my
It's
mother, and
beautiful.
she had tears in her eyes today. And it was so moving because this moment still is so, it's very much present part of our lives.
And I'm sure a lot of women, other working women, also feel the same. And so I think this is one of my favorite books that she has written. And a lot of my friends have been telling me that they're really excited that she's coming online because they read this book. It was long back when she wrote this book, and it's still,
I was
people are
nine
still
years
reading
old.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So,
was 22
Anandita,
years ago.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Anandita, tell me, were you ever because she's such a great writer, do you think that there was at any point of time, was there any expectation from you to become a writer, or was there any pressure that, I have to become a writer because my mother is such a great writer? Or if her writing and her popularity as a writer ever influenced you in any way?
Let me just be very honest, because that's how I do best. But I feel that, it was such a important call as a mother who works, that she took the decision to see my sister Arundhati and me grow up from home. She took that decision to work from home to see us grow up. So ever since then to now, I see her so ever so driven, and that has resonated with me. Just the fact that she works so hard. And but has there been any expectation? No. Like, have they pressurized me to come into a certain segment because they have been in it? No. My parents have always believed that we should do things from our heart, and we should know the meaning of what hard work entails. So I went from being a student in hotel management to now in fashion. So I've come a really long way, and with fashion I've recently started to write. But there was no pressure, if you ask me. But it was something,
It was a choice you made.
but it was inherent, yes. And also, if you ask if there was certain pressure, no. But I remember the time when my mom used to tell me, you can only go down and play if you write 2 essays a day, and then only can you go down and play. So I think that was also a form of getting me to self-express myself at a young age. So ever since then, I've learned the form of self-expression, be it in fashion today, that I'm able to bring out that quality. Whether it's in my sartorial choices, I'm not the most conventional dress. I'm not known to be that way. But in my styling, I like to bring out the person's personality out, and make that shine, along with getting them to kind of be a little coaxed into my qualities and my sensibilities as well. But I don't necessarily push it. It has to be in sync with the person's personality, for sure.
Anandita, you went to London to study fashion, and
Yes.
you've been working with a lot of designers today. You've been writing for the Hello magazine, and you've been doing shoots every now and then. And the other day, I was just looking at your Instagram and your styling, which is very different, which is very over the top, as we say, OTT for
Yeah.
today's generation. What do you have to say about that?
I feel, Anurag, that fashion is so ever so changing, But I had the best time at Regents. I think it was such a sensible decision. I told my parents that, listen, guys, I don't want jewelry. I don't want anything really expensive. What I want to invest in is education. And I didn't go after my +2 years, that's 11th and 12th. So I wanted to make the best of my education now. So I went to London, and I got such a strong understanding, that everything is so well accepted over there. There's no like, oh my God, you're using these loud colors. Oh my God, there's too much bling. Oh my God, there's too much. Everything was so widely accepted that I felt more in comfort with my own sensibilities, with myself, that I did some incredible shoots, which I'm incredibly proud of. I came back with a distinction merit. And then I went to the designers. Rather, we approached each other mutually, and we did some shoots. Interestingly enough, I did shoots for Indian wear, which normally I don't really wear it on an everyday basis, but I love wearing saris. So it was so much fun. It was incredible. To work with celebrities, which at first I used to shun the idea. I used to be like, oh my God, I don't want to work with celebrities. I don't want to deal with that drama. But after a while, I got so used to it, because that's when I realized that they're so good at what they do, obviously for a reason. And fortunately, some of them are very, very close friends of mine. So it made working with them so much more fun, much more enjoyable, and to be able to self-express. I think self-expression is such a huge gift. If we can do that, I think that in itself is a huge privilege.
That's beautiful, Anna. I've seen your work and I really like it. I don't need to say this because because I'm saying it because I genuinely feel. And Anandita, I also want to talk to you about something that I have been thinking for very, very, very long, is what is really the definition of beauty? Because you say what the society has done to us has
Yeah.
defined boxes, has defined lines, and said this is what it means. But
Right.
is it true? Because when we run schools in the slums, and the children who are reading books there. So I just went to a slum, and I was on a round, and I just picked up the book. What are you teaching them? And one of those books had the definition of beautiful and ugly, and you will be shocked to death what it was. It was a fair blonde, blue-eyed girl who was called beautiful, and a dark girl with not so sharp features wearing a sari and wearing a sindoor was defined as ugly. I was ashamed that this is the education system of our country, where this is the definition of beauty and ugly. What is your opinion about the same?
I was so happy to write the Hello Magazine article because I remember writing it, and I remember about the specific girl who's doing so incredibly well. Her name is Adat Ikesh, and she was a refugee. She's completely like a tan in color, but boy, does she look sexy. She looks incredible when she was Karl Lagerfeld's muse. I mean, it can't get better than that. And I think Winnie Harlow as well. I mean, to deal with the fact that she has a skin condition and make it sexy to be considered a sex symbol. I think I think that one should, like own it, in all its senses. Not have these so-called protocols and these so-called norms and these so-called preconceived notions of how beauty should be. I think that we should own our stripes. We should, even if girls have stretch marks, deal with it. Own it. Or cellulite, deal with it. I feel so happy that today that plus has become such a huge thing. I mean, people are not body shaming as much as they used to.
Yes, true.
Size zero is not considered that cool anymore. People are becoming more versatile with their trends, and they're becoming more widely accepted. So I think it has also to do with international exposure, where we are you know removing these ideas of using these fairness creams, which we used to be obsessed with, to look fair. Being fair was considered the it thing, from our grandmother's time. You had to wear powder on your face to look fair. That was considered beautiful. So I'm really happy that with time things are changing and constantly evolving. And I think that we are in a good space in the fashion industry today to send out messages which are strong and positive, and which can make somebody feel widely accepted.
True.
Yeah.
That is very true, because fashion industry is one of the industries which really is responsible for influencing millions and millions of people, not just in one specific state or a country, but worldwide. I mean, if anything happens in the field of fashion, it is so widespread that people follow it blindly. So they are
Yeah.
very, very responsible. So they are the ones who should be responsible and should take positive measures like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Anandita, I also want to ask that if everyone's praising your mother wherever she goes, she's the center of the attraction. She's beautiful. She has amazing sense of fashion. Do you think that your sense of fashion is inspired from your mother, or there's some kind of inspiration from her, or was there something that made you go to London to study fashion? What was that you had such clear thing about fashion? What was the clarity? Why was there so much clarity in your mind that you want to go to London and learn fashion and then come back to the country and do all that you're doing?
Well, Anurag, I'm quite a London lover, so I just dived at the opportunity when I could get my hands on going to London. It's as blatantly honest, but no, jokes apart, I feel that my mother has been such a strong influence in my life, and especially when it comes to even trends. I think sometimes she knows trends even better than me, and she's constantly updating me, which constantly gets me on my toes and says, okay, I have to like step it up a bit. But I think that she's always known that I've been a person with my own sensibilities since a child. I've never been the kind of girl to only wear pretty pink frocks to a party and trying to look like as feminine as possible. Sometimes I've been in a boisterous mood, so I've decided to wear sequins or gold or silver, whatever I wanted to wear. And she's always let me own that. She's always told me that so long as you're looking pretty, so long as you're feeling beautiful, there's no reason why you should not express yourself in your dressing sense. So, I think that a large part of me wanted to go to London because I wanted to explore also another side of myself, of my own personality, which is other than fashion, how to live independently on my own, how to deal with dealing with just finances, like how do you basically live on your own, how do you deal with money, how do you go and get international exposure, how do you meet different people from different cultures, a whole bag of things. So I wouldn't just say it was only strictly to do with fashion. I think that it also had to do with a whole gamut of things which gave me that world exposure and which gave me that strong responsibility. When I come back, I will want to be in this fraternity. And I think that as a parent, it's very important to kind of educate your child before they kind of go into something, because that they should be fully aware of what they're getting into before they put their foot into it. Out here, it's quite easy for me to get into the circles if I want to, but I think as a parent, it is very essential that a parent kind of guides their child and says, okay, if you're really serious about it, then you should put your foot, you should not put your foot in your mouth. You should know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And that's it. I think that my mother did a very good job in sending me over there. And I'm just so happy that, and I really, really cherish that moment where I got to study in London. It is the biggest gift a parent could have given me at the time.
Very beautifully expressed, Anandita. Thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to end this conversation with if you have any favorite book, because this is a part of a literature festival. If you have a favorite book, or if you're reading something right now, if you'd like to show the people what you're reading, or tell them about the book that you're reading as of now.
Well, I always go back to my mother's books, and currently I have not set my hands on socialite evenings, and that's what I plan to do, is to get my hand on that and go into the world which I still had not known and want to know in the present.
So wonderful. I think all of us who've not read Socialite Evenings should read the book and maybe come back with Shobha one day, talk just about Socialite Evenings. Thank you, Anandita, for being here.
Thank you.
And before we leave, I'd just like to tell everyone the next session is Padma Shri Dr. Soma Ghosh, who would be performing and singing and taking us through the journey of music from Rig Veda to Bollywood. What a beautiful conversation it would be. And I request all of you to join in. Anandita, if you're free, please join in.
Sure.
And enjoy the music.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
Thank you.
Care.
Bye.
Thank you.